Alright, so I'm going to go through some players that have been in the trade rumors recently, and I'm just going to quickly go over their situation with the team and what they've done over the last season and really see if each player should get traded. So let's get into it. First, I have Julius Randle, and right now he's in a little bit of a weird spot with the Knicks. The Knicks had one of their best seasons in recent years, and it was all off of Julius Randle's injury. Jalen Brunson stepped up big in the regular season and the playoffs, and that was included with the role players, and they looked like a proper team ran well behind Tom Thibodeau. But now the question for Julius Randle, can he come into a role and really coexist with Jalen Brunson? Even though Julius Randle is a star, we're still not truly convinced if it could work with Jalen Brunson and the rest of the team in a playoff setting. So people around the league thought the Knicks can go for a bigger star or a couple of key pieces to add around this core that they had go so far in the playoffs this season. So this all leads to the question of, should Julius Randle be traded this offseason? And I don't think he should be traded. First off, though, I think he should get traded for a bigger star. I don't think Julius Randle would command a sum of a bigger star, so I think that's kind of out of the window for that idea. But I think it is possible for Julius Randle to coexist and really adapt to this team. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of Julius Randle, there's one thing that's undeniable about him, and that's his ability to improve over his career. Even though in the past few seasons he's had up and down years, he's shown that throughout all of that he can still improve and understand the game, at least on his level of how he wants to score. So if Julius Randle can continue his level of play into the playoffs, I think he'll do fine as a Knick with the way this team is now. And I won't say this isn't impossible, because Julius Randle has shown so far as a Knick that he can improve over time. Now to go across the bridge to Brooklyn, I'm going to talk about Mikal Bridges. And to be honest, Mikal Bridges got traded into a dumpster fire of a franchise in the Brooklyn Nets. Trading all three stars in James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant in a span of a year. And though they got Mikal Bridges in one trade, which I guess is a little bit positive, the rest of their trades, I would say the best player that came out of it was Ben Simmons, and he has barely played for them so far. And alongside Mikal Bridges, the Brooklyn Nets are barely a play-in team, with their best players really being Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, and Nick Claxton, that's most likely leaving in free agency. And even if Nick Claxton comes back, they're not good enough to contend now, and they don't have a good enough young core to compete in the future. And Mikal Bridges isn't young enough to be waiting for a young core to truly develop like that. Now, should Mikal Bridges get traded in the offseason? This is a very easy yes. Although there were some talks that the Brooklyn Nets want to build around Mikal Bridges and bring in an actual star to be the first option, beside Mikal Bridges to be a second option, I highly doubt they would actually get a star to come in, especially after what they did to the first three that came in. But now to switch it up to Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat. There have been recently some little problems with the front office and Jimmy Butler, and it's kind of been like that with the team and him. It's just the difference now is that they're not winning as much. This is their second season as basically an 8 seed. And though the Heat were able to go to the finals the season before, I'm not going to call it a fluke, but Jimmy Butler and the Heat hit their stride at the right time. But now leads to the question, should Jimmy Butler get traded this offseason? But before I answer that, I think the bigger question is, can the Miami Heat get Jimmy Butler a championship contending squad within the next 2 years? Because he's 34, he's getting older, and injuries have already been shown to be constant with him. Can the Miami Heat get a championship roster in the next 2 years with their current squad? And I say no. And can they make a possible move of getting a star to at least help Jimmy Butler get there? And that's another no. I don't want to see the Heat bringing up another package of Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, random bench player number 3 and some first round picks for a star, because nobody wants that. So they have a lot of money on their books and they don't really have enough talent to get a star to play alongside Jimmy Butler and Bam. So since they can't do that, brings back to the question, should the Heat trade Jimmy Butler this offseason? And that's yes. This could give the Heat a couple of key role players to build around Bam, as well as even some draft capital. And the Heat has been drafting okay through their past few years, but I think the big thing is to kind of reset this type of roster they have going, because I feel like it's just Jimmy, Bam, Tyler Hero, and maybe a random fourth, whether it was Kyle Lowry a few years ago, Terry Rozier now, and then a few really solid contributing bench pieces, but that's just not enough in today's NBA. And lastly, I got Zach LaVine, where his last season was poor to say the least, as he was injured for a good amount of it, and when he was playing, he wasn't playing too well. And he actually was a trade target for some teams near the trade deadline, and he had an opportunity to maybe get traded to the Detroit Pistons, and his reaction was opting for surgery to end his season. Man, the Pistons really can't catch a break. But on a serious note, Zach LaVine opting for surgery just after those rumors of him and the Pistons is kind of a funny coincidence. But this still leaves the question going into offseason of whether the Bulls should keep this core for the next season or trade away their core and try and rebuild with their younger roster. And with their recent history of how they've been trying to assemble a team for the playoffs, as well as them right now having a mutual interest with DeRozan to resign for maybe a 2-year, $80 million deal. So if the Bulls are going to try and compete for next year, should they keep Zach LaVine on the team, or should he just be shipped out? Because they did have a decent season after he left, with the emergence of Kobe White and some other younger role players that have been able to shine in Zach LaVine's absence, as well as even having Lonzo Ball finally come back from his 2-year hiatus. So the Bulls actually kind of have some guard depth with Kobe White, Alex Caruso, Ayo Dosunmu, and even Dalen Terry that's been able to show some defensive promise as a guard. So this leads to the question, should the Bulls trade Zach LaVine this offseason? And it's going to be a no. So I know what people are thinking, that they should just rebuild the squad and first trade Zach LaVine and later trade DeRozan as well as Vucevic, as they hold some value with higher contracts and you could have the money as well as the young talent for the future. And I would agree with everyone that would choose for the Bulls to rebuild, but I think 2 reasons why they shouldn't trade him so soon in this offseason is just because of his value. Just because of his inconsistent season that included injuries, everybody's looking at LaVine's contract negatively. So looking at what happened with Zach LaVine, you're going to have to let him play through the season and hopefully get his value up to eventually get traded. But right now, I think it's going to be too low for the Bulls to actually get anything of value for him right now. Alright, so this is the end of the video. Do you guys agree with my choices or disagree? Please let me know in the comments. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm out.